And here to tell us more about the moose that has found its way, potentially, likely from Minnesota down into Nebraska, is Nancy Hansen. She is the area wildlife manager for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources based in Two Harbors. Nancy, good to talk with you again.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
All right. Well, I shared with you some of the links of the moose that is potentially likely from Minnesota that has now found its way down into Nebraska here this first week and now even into the 8th. It's been seen roaming the sandhills and areas of Nebraska, covering some ground down there. Just to get it started, is it possible that this moose came from the boundary waters here in northeastern Minnesota in this region and is the moose that's being seen now in Nebraska? Is that possible?
Well, I'd say never. Anything is possible. I do know we've had moose wander into southern Minnesota and Iowa. This is a really long ways for a moose to go from northeastern Minnesota to eastern Nebraska. Without some other DNA testing, we don't know, is this a North Dakota moose? Is this a northwestern Minnesota moose? Is it from the northeast part of Minnesota? We do have some moose that live around Leech Lake. We do have some moose that live around Aiken County and wildlife refuge there. So, anything's possible. But I don't know that anyone has tracked this moose before it got to Nebraska. So.
Okay. And is it typical that moose during the rut, which is, now October, September, late September into this October timeframe, typically, that they're going to be covering ground where a bull would be sort of on the move in a way that would take it out of this boundary waters region or other parts of Minnesota?
Sure. It's very unusual for a bull to travel these kind of distances that we're talking about here. They tend to have their home range, and dominant bulls tend to keep their territory. They're a little larger in the winter, a little smaller in the summer. The dominant bulls will, just try to defend their territory, and usually younger bulls, if this animal is saying that 4 to 5 year old range, it's not quite a prime age yet, but it may be looking for the opportunity to breed, and so therefore they tend to either hang around a dominant bull's territory with the hopes of catching a female when he's not looking, kind of thing, or they may venture a little on the outskirts or even move, especially if they've been chased out for some reason.
Okay, so that leads it to be possible then, or sort of expands on that notion that this moose came from Minnesota at this time, and that there have been some reports in the past and talking with some of the news crews down in Nebraska that, oh yeah, we've done this story a few times over the years. Like, it's not a common thing for a moose to be in Nebraska, especially coming from the boundary waters up here, but that it is possible and does happen periodically. And of course, if every moose sighting here in the boundary waters up the Gunflint or over toward Ely made the evening news, that would just be pretty much an endless cycle of moose sightings this time of year, because there's been a lot of them recently in the boundary waters region, and that's potentially tied to the rut and this movement, this sort of moose activity that's occurring now during the mating season. And so with that in mind, when people are out in the woods up here in northeastern Minnesota and the rut is on, should we be more mindful or staying away from moose in a way that they're more aggressive than usual this time of year?
Yes, that's a great question. Definitely you want to be more mindful. It is the time of year where the males are rutting. They've got hormonal urges. Their neck swells up. they've got one thing on their mind. They may not be feeding as much. And typically from about mid-September to mid-October is the rutting period or the breeding season. I think the most activity occurs somewhere around October 1st as far as North America goes. It's driven by the length of day or daylight versus temperature and other things. But with that in mind, yes, they are more aggressive, definitely, and less predictable. And they may mistake you for, either like if somebody's hunting with their dogs, a dog might be considered a predator that needs to be dealt with. People can just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I guess with those things in mind, if you're bird hunting with your dog, I understand the dog's not going to be on a leash, but otherwise, if you're just going for a leisurely walk, keep your dog on a leash. And if your dog's not on a leash, at least have very good control over it. Maybe that's an electronic collar or something where the dog is going to recall to you immediately. You don't want to turn your back on a moose and run away. With many animals, running can engage a chase reaction from the other animal. So you want to back away slowly, talk quietly. But if you're walking down a trail, it doesn't hurt to make a little noise, just to avoid surprising any animal. Moose don't have very good eyesight, but they have excellent hearing. That's one of their best features, and an excellent sense of smell. So the wind can do you a favor, or it can also create a problem that you may suddenly be on top of a moose you didn't know was there. But noise, unless it's a really windy day, generally carries very well. And the other thing is, the days are a little shorter now. I know people are out looking for moose to view, and you want to keep, probably at least 25 yards, and certainly more distance is better as far as how close you get to a moose. If you want to get a great picture, then have a decent camera with a nice telephoto lens, something to that effect, or get your binoculars out. I know some people even enjoy imitating the call of a cow moose, hoping to draw a bull moose in. And while that's okay, make sure you're in a safe place. And they're very good at pinpointing exactly where sound is coming from. So that often surprises people. They don't realize how good a moose is at that. So you may be surprised.
Yeah, very interesting. And so when we talk about moose encounters with people where there could potentially be a dangerous situation, the spring with a cow, a female, a cow moose, and a calf, a young moose, that's definitely a time that we've talked in the past about. Be mindful of that situation. And now, is it primarily though just bulls then in the fall, or is it still the combo?
You can still have a cow moose be somewhat aggressive this time of year. It's not unheard of, but it's certainly more of a concern with bulls. And when you see them extending their nose into the air, maybe they're licking their nostrils, maybe their eyes, you see the whites of their eyes. I know that's a moose that you might have a pretty aggressive reaction from. So again, you just want to back off. And the other thing is they're really dark animals. So when you're driving around the roads in the dark, I just wanted to mention that if you're in moose country, be mindful of that. Be careful. They're really hard to see at night on the road. And, so just to avoid, a moose can do a lot of damage to a vehicle, and certainly cause a lot of personal injury, even if they're just minding their own business. They're just in a bad place. So.
Right. Okay. And then just lastly, with the moose population, it's been pretty stable the past few years from the aerial surveys, which take place in the winter, January timeframe.
Yeah.
And so the population's stable. We've had a number of discussions over the years about brainworm and other things that might have caused or impacted the moose population here in Minnesota. With this moose in Nebraska, is it possible that it's not just roaming because of mating, but that it's sick in some way or diseased or something like that?
It's possible, but I don't have enough information to verify that. I mean, I've only seen 1 or 2 pictures, and I can't tell that there's anything sick looking about it. I haven't heard that it's walking in circles or drooling or hanging its head funny. It's very possible even that it has parasites of some kind, but they're really tough animals and they can endure a lot before they succumb to a health problem. So I just don't know the answer to that. And the other thing I was going to mention is I know like the western part of the state, they do get influxes of moose every now and then from Wyoming. So possibly this moose just somehow came across a different direction from out west. But as you know, when a moose is in open country, everybody sees it. And so, it's not going to hide for very long. Even in North Dakota, I mean, it's not uncommon to drive through the state and you can see moose fairly readily because there's a lot of open country up there. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, it certainly got the attention of the people in Nebraska, and including the
Sure.
person who first shared it with us, our buddy Omaha, Eric Dick, is down in Omaha, who is a big Boundary Waters enthusiast and loves to see moose when he's up here with his boys or when he's up here fishing with us and so forth. So for him, I think the idea of this moose coming down from the Boundary Waters was part of the lure of the story or the fascination with it. But hopefully this
Sure.
moose is able to get back somewhere where it feels a little more safe with the winter coming on, and we'll see if there's hopefully not a sad ending to this. I'm sure the news crews in Nebraska will definitely be following the moose and the story down there through law enforcement and their wildlife agencies. We're talking with the area wildlife manager for the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources in northeastern Minnesota, Nancy Hansen. Nancy, always a pleasure to chat with you. Thanks so much for your time.
All right. Thank you, Joe.